Hello, testing. We're good to go. And welcome everybody. Well, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to Coven Press's All Booked Out Fest. My name is Liz McCracken. I'm the design coordinator at Coven Press, and I'll be your moderator for today's the indie industry, a breakdown panel. So first and foremost, Coven Press would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the unceded lands of the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to the first storytellers of this land, their elders, past and present, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here in the audience today. So, independent publishing has grown rapidly in recent years. It's an exciting sphere that gives writers creative control, makes space for voices that don't always fit the mould, and reshapes how authors are reaching readers. We are pulling back the curtain to catch a glimpse of how this industry works today, the hard work, plethora of choices, and the growing community that helps the independent publishing industry to thrive. You'll be hearing from a group of remarkable women today, who just live and breathe just creativity and publishing. Whatever your interest in the publishing industry, we hope this conversation gives you some great insights and inspiration and even ideas for your own writing journey. So I'll get started with some introductions. So next to me I have Steph. She is Coven Press's own marketing coordinator. So she has a background in film and television as a screenwriter and story producer. And she sees stories as a living multi-dimensional entities. From idea development to social strategy, she creates space for authors' voices to be heard and recognised. Next we have Lauren, who is the director and owner of Hardy Audio, which is a Ballarat-based business that specialises in all things auditory and loves helping authors to take their stories to the next level by helping them produce professional audiobooks and everything that goes with that. Next we have Paula, who is a Ballarat-based thriller writer that has just released her second novel, Boney Creek, at the start of June, and she released her debut novel last year with publisher Thomas and Mercer. So her stories usually contain flawed female characters that don't always get it right, but they just give it a crack anyway. Very realistic, I love it. And last is MG Hunt, who is not only an independently published author, you probably saw her books on the way in. She is a fantasy author and illustrator, and she hosts a podcast called Indie Author Life. So she gets together with other authors and more recently service providers and discusses the ups and downs of the industry. So it's a very good podcast. You should all listen to it. Okay, please welcome our panellists. Okay, question number one. So this is for everyone. I'd love to hear from everyone. What got you interested in working in the publishing industry, whether it was an author or as a professional service provider? Who wants to go first?
Does it work? Yes, it does. So what inspired me to get into publishing was, first of all, trying to find the right time to release my book, my debut novel. There was a lot of back and forth of exploring whether I wanted to do traditional publishing versus self-publishing. And I did dabble a bit with traditional publishing, but there was a lot of back and forth around things, and things didn't quite work out on that front. So I decided to publish a short story that I had, which I'd written after my debut novel. So if you can see down on the table there is a bigger book and a smaller book, and the smaller pink book was written after the big blue book, but it was my first published work, and I gave it a go, self-published it, and I was quite pleased with the result of getting it out there and engaging with a already existing and growing community of indie authors. So then when it came to my debut full-length novel, I thought, yeah, I'm going to follow the same path and sure enough, I was quite pleased again with the result. So Still Waters Run Deep, my big blue novel, has been out since end of April. So it's been a couple of months and it has been so exciting to see the growth of it. But not only that, but connecting with other people who have followed along the same journey as me. And I think there's a big community out there that will want to help and support you as well. And so that is not only what has encouraged me to continue with self-publishing, but also has made me think, yeah, maybe for the next couple of books I will continue with self-publishing. Traditional publishing is also something that is not off the cards, and it's something that you can query at any time, but self-publishing has been so rewarding in so many different ways. So that was why I went with self-publishing in this area. Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
You'll pick up my
Steph's up.
Got the next one. You got the next one.
I think like many of us, I always wrote from a really young age, and when it came down to deciding where I wanted to spend my time and learning throughout university, I did look into publishing, and at the time the only degree I could take was a journalism degree. And I remember the first class I ever did, the lecturer said, if you're here to do anything creative, don't bother, don't do this course. And I was like, okay, I just won't do it. And so I dropped out, and have always written and done a lot of different followed a lot of different creative ventures, and recently moved to Ballarat and found myself immersed in the publishing community again, in the indie industry. And I'm also part of Coven Press, as you guys know, as well, and as this intro. And as I worked amongst all the women in Coven Press, I became more, I guess, versed in what it looked like and what it actually meant, because in my mind growing up there wasn't a massive indie publishing world, and I was always so driven to traditional publishing. And so through everyone that I've come into contact with from an indie publishing, from hybrid publishing as well, it's given me a new outlook on how to actually, for myself, be an author and what that looks like, but also what I can do to help other people in the industry get to do what they want to do best. I think that answers the question.
Here you go. I don't know if I need this, but so I project. Sorry, everyone. So I actually went the traditional publishing route. Honestly, mainly because I'm a little bit lazy. Although going down the traditional publishing route is quite a journey. I pivoted into publishing quite late in life. I also came from a film and TV background, producing, directing, doing a lot of documentaries, commercial work and feature film work, which I did for 25 plus years. And after doing that for a very long time and being quite burnt out, I really started just channeling into something that I wanted to do when I was younger, but never really gave it any kind of weight. But I realised if I was going to publish books and eventually hopefully get them made into feature films, that time was ticking and I needed to kind of get a handle on that. I had no idea about publishing at all. I didn't know anyone in the industry, started from scratch, learned it was a very, very complicated and hard career, just as film and TV was. And starting out querying and trying to go the trad publishing route in Australia was quite complicated. I found that actually very difficult with so minimal agents and publishers. So I ended up going offshore, where I eventually got an agent over in New York instead. And from that also my publisher is over in the States as well. So that was, not something that I really wanted to do, but it just because our market was quite small here. So now my journey has sort of taken me from over in the States, but now I want to come back onshore and kind of trad pub here a little bit more. For me, yeah, it was definitely that thing of I want to see if I can go the traditional route of getting an agent and a publisher that way. If I can't, then absolutely I have no problems with going the indie route. It was just more if I can have that, the people assisting me, especially because I was so burnt out from film and TV. That was mainly the reason I did go that route. So no particular reason, and there's certainly no reason I wouldn't go to indie if I needed to go that route as well. So yeah, just where the cards lay. So.
Do you want this guy?
I saw the opportunity to strip back a lot of the financial burden that was around audiobook production. In any industry, I suppose, there's always the opportunity to put as much overhead on everything as possible to make as much money as possible. I don't believe that's always necessary, and we saw the opportunity to strip back the costs and make production a lot easier and dispel a lot of the confusion about audiobooks and the production in order to make it more accessible and affordable for indie publishers and anyone else. We've done some great self-help books, and we wanted to provide a model that meant it was accessible to everyone. You don't need to be in a metropolitan setting, and it's actually not as hard as it may be built to look like from the outside.
I'll give you that one.
Sorry, my microphone had run away. Okay. I'll pick on you again, Paula, for question 2.
Sounds like a game show. And question number 2.
Question number 2. Paula, can you share? Can you go kind of deeper into how the length of time it kind of took to kind of go through all of that stuff to get traditionally published, and what's your experience been like with all the kind of fun stuff like the marketing and the distribution of your 2 lovely books?
For sure. It wasn't an easy process. It was basically from the time I decided to take publishing seriously to learning what I even had to do that. I didn't even realise you had to write a whole manuscript to query an agent. I was like, yeah, sweet, just chuck an idea at them and they'll be like, that sounds amazing, and I'll sign you. No, you had to write a whole manuscript. So I was like, okay, I better start there. And yeah, basically just learning a whole new career it was quite a lot. And at the time, Twitter was the place to be for writers. And that's where I found a lot of community, especially overseas, which was where I was querying and also submitting to editors over there as well. So basically from Original Twin was actually my first manuscript. But by the time I found an agent, that actually went a bit pear-shaped and she dropped out of agency. So then I had to write a whole new manuscript. And it took me another kind of 3 years to find another agent, and by that time I'd written another 4 manuscripts to try and get into the door. Trying to get a literary agent is no joke. It's actually, I think, even harder than getting a publisher, I'm not going to lie. So by this stage I'd kind of written 4 or 5 manuscripts, and when I finally got my next agent, we went out with a young adult project to start with, got very close to selling it, but by that stage they were like, look, have you got anything that's adult? What else have you got? Which was great. I had plenty of projects to submit to them. So we went back to my very first project, which was Original Twin, and thankfully I had that because they were like, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. But from that time of still doing production, but really trying to immerse myself in and giving publishing a crack, it was around 14 years, so it was a long time, and a lot of I want to give this up, and is this for me? But it was definitely all worth it for me in the long run, and certainly it doesn't end, and you think, oh, every step you're like, once I get an agent, it's going to be fine. Once I get a publishing deal, it's going to be fine. None of that is true. It basically, the journey just continually just recalibrates as soon as you get to the next stage, basically. So even with my debut, it was such a learning curve, because I thought if I have a traditional publisher and a big publisher behind me, I would be kind of free to do just writing, and I could just finally just be a full-time writer. But that's just not true. Traditional publishing is still a lot of marketing, publicity, a lot of the legwork, groundwork yourself, and that's constant. It's probably the most of your time is devoted to that versus writing. So it just is part of the deal. I can't imagine having to do that where you're also having to deal with your cover and the printing and the distribution and everything else. So but it is still a big ask, even in the traditional publishing route. And once you've got your contract, it's really, you're only as good as your last book. And then it's like, what's next? How are your sales looking? They're not as great as we want. We might step out of this contract, then you have to go back on submission. I'm on submission for 2 different projects at the moment. So submission is where you send it out to editors. And I'm doing that in the US, UK and Australia all at once this time. So it's kind of the never-ending story. The major advice I've got there is just keep going and keep producing, because it's always about what have you got next? What have you got next? Yeah,
thank you for that. Yeah. For the flip side of the coin, I might just ask Steph and MG to talk about indie publishing and how that offers a difference in the accessibility, because as you said, it's a hard slog to get into traditional publishing, and accessibility to get into the industry, and the stories, the different stories that can be told that might not necessarily be told through traditional publishing.
Yeah, I can say something to that.
You've got something juicy to say. Let's go.
Maybe. Let's see. When I was listening to you say your experience, Paula, I found one part of that particularly interesting about querying to what perhaps they want. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting because you had ideas that you had a catalogue of writing and things like that, but ultimately it was perhaps the decision of people above you in the publishing world to go ahead and take your idea on. And so that is something where self-publishing is a little bit different to that, which is arguably, it's different, and it is more, I guess, accessible in a lot of ways, that you don't have the overarching pressure from a business entity other than yourself. Which pressure on yourself is another thing in self-publishing that we will get into. But that was probably the key difference that I think between the two. And when it comes to self-publishing, what I have really enjoyed is the accessibility of it. And I think it is the perfect word to describe it, where if you have an idea and you've written your book, you can go for it and publish it on Kindle Direct Publishing or Ingram Spark or other distributors like that, and your idea is out there in the world. But then where traditional and self-publishing align is the individual responsibility you have around marketing, And I'm so glad that you mentioned that about the traditional publishing world, how it's not always a set and forget sort of situation where you feel like I have reached a point, it is on to them. Of course, there are parts of that as well, which are great. But that is the same with self-publishing, where, and arguably even more so, it is your responsibility to take on the marketing, to take on your role as the business owner. So the self-publishing part of it also is where you become the business owner, and there is the creative part that you have immersed yourself in this world that you've written, and it's so exciting and your story is out there, and that's precious and that's important. And it is important to remember that for when you go into the next phase, which is, okay, oh my God, I've got a book, I have to market it. Like, this is intense. And it is intense, and it is, it feels like you are sometimes in your own space. But there is a massive growing community of indie authors out here that are happy to help and assist with questions that you have around cover design and editing and all that stuff to really get your book out there to the best quality that it can be. Now, to the accessibility point, if you have a manuscript that you've written on Word and you can upload it to the requirements that Kindle Direct Publishing and Ingram Spark, for example, need, you can go ahead and do that. That's fine. And it's possible to do that. But if you want to take it to the next level and maybe to a standard that you are absolutely proud of, that's when it is your responsibility to engage with a designer for the inside and the outside of the cover, and also the editing. So the editing part is probably where the magic happens, because you can have readers who will be involved, like the beta readers and such, that will help you read your book. It is a lot of community help, which is very much appreciated, but it does all come down to you to make the decisions on your timeline. You have all the time in the world in a lot of ways. There is no larger entity pushing you along. When's the next one? But the community will do that to you as well. Don't get me wrong, the community will be like, okay, when's the next book? Let's go. But it is on your own timeline, which works for a lot of people. It certainly works for me because it takes me so long to write books and get them out there and everything like that, which is great. But it is on my terms. So I have to be self-motivated to do this. I don't have anyone else but me telling me to do it. I am the one that has to have the motivation to do it all, and also support myself with my day job as well. So there's lots of different things. The best part about it too is that also you can choose what you want to write, and there are stories coming out in the indie space that are so diverse and so without the touch of appealing to popular, I guess, marketing ideas of what is popular out there that might be pushed by traditional publishing. Not always, but I guess what self-publishing allows then is if you have your idea and it's your idea, it's so unique, you can go for it. You just have to be prepared to also be your self-motivator too. So that is my 2 cents on that.
Very good. I think we've got our money's worth.
Oh, great.
So, Steph, do you have anything more to add for that?
I completely agree with you. I think the accessibility part comes from the fact that it is so totally your own thing. You do what you want with it. You can get your cover designer, you can get your editors, you can get your team together, and that's, I think, what's incredible. You also have an amazing community around you, which we've all spoken about on Twitter as well. Like you were saying, Paula, and the indie community as well are so willing to put time and effort into supporting everyone as a whole and lifting everyone up. There are obviously like cons to that as well. I think we've sort of touched on them in the way that I've seen things recently is I think marketing does, sort of touching on what you said, MG, marketing does start when the book is being written. I think a lot of authors do, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think with marketing as well, traditionally it does start quite later on in the piece. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But I think so many authors get to the end and they say, okay, cool, I'm going to market my book now. It's like, okay, well, the book's out. At the end of the day, you are, and I think we've spoken about it a lot over the course of the festival, but you are a business as an author, and I think keeping that in mind, you are selling something, and you need to make sure that that is being promoted, in marketing, but also like cover design, like editing. Your people will not buy your books unless the cover appeals to a broader audience. Immediately, if you don't have a cover that, while indie publishing does allow accessibility in doing what you want with your covers, I think there is a way to educate and to learn what is popular, taking what is doing well and pivoting it in a way that appeals to your audience so that it joins, it's not the right word, but joins together so that there is that cohesion in what is accessed by the public. In the same way that editing is really important, and I think a lot of people, because of money and all those things, choose to skip the editing processes. That's where your bad reviews, especially in the indie space, does come from, when you have like characters that don't make sense or plot holes. These are things I think they're accessible, but I think there is a level of access that isn't available to everyone. So it's just, I guess, finding that middle ground between what is viable and what isn't for you as an author. But I think at the end of the day, treating your authorial, like it is your brand, it is your business, and doing what you can to sell that product.
I'll just add to that marketing starts when it's going to acquisition. So if an editor at a publishing house likes your book, obviously they're looking for something with a strong hook that they think they can sell. And then if the editor likes it, then it goes to an acquisitions meeting, sometimes a couple of acquisitions meetings. And that's where a whole team of people will come together, and that includes sales and marketing, because they all get a say in if they think this book is worth the spend, the money, and if they can A, sell it, and B, market it. So everyone is really part of that process right from the get-go. And if sales says, no, I don't think I can sell this, then often you'll fail at acquisitions, even if you have an editor that's absolutely in love with your project. That's happened to me more times than I can count. So that's where it is fantastic at any stage to, when you're coming up with that initial idea, is to have that really strong hook, because that will, at every stage of your journey, it's going to matter. What makes this important? What makes somebody want to pick it up? And also, is there a connection as the author to tell this story? Because that's also really relevant and important as well. So, and I think just on the editorial side, which is something that is just like, when you finish your book, you're so excited to get it out. You just want readers. There's this real urge to just, it's perfect, it's lovely, sit on it for a couple of months at least, and really just marinate in that, try to suppress that if you can, because you need that kind of distance from your book, especially after the first couple of drafts. So please just do that. It's so worthwhile, so yeah.
That was really interesting to see how our little lines with each other and how different it can be. My screen has just turned off, so I will just turn it on again so I can read the next question. But actually, I will just go off the cuff. The next one is for Lauren. Yes, we'll give you another microphone again. And we just want to know, you work with authors. How have you found authors come to you and approach what they want to do with audiobooks, and how you're making it accessible to them?
The first thing that authors want to do is find a cheaper way of doing it. That's the first thing that happens. And
Sounds right.
if you do it in a cheap way, you want your audience is going to be with you for 9 hours, so approximately. So to do a cheaper version becomes prohibitive as far as your market reach goes, because the platforms won't allow substandard audio. Everything is listened to before it hits the platforms, and if you're going to release on a free platform, you're already sort of a little bit behind the 8 ball as far as marketing goes. So from an accessibility point of view, we've done a few things. One of them is around geography, in that we've created a mini studio that we ship out to authors, and we sit with the author on scheduled Zoom sessions, and we coach them through reading the book. So there's consistency in delivery. We are making sure that the author's voice isn't getting tired. We had one last week who decided he knew more about audio and speaking than we did, and we welcome that. But he also worked out that he couldn't read for 7 hours. And despite probably talking a lot on his day-to-day marketing experience, he worked out pretty quick that he burnt his voice and took him another 4 days to recover to be able to get back in. And then there was a difference. And so from an accessibility point of view, to have a kit sitting in your 3rd bedroom for a couple of weeks rather than trying to rush it through is the name of the game. From accessibility point of view, you don't need to be in a metropolitan setting. This kit is half the size of a table, and we ship it out. We help you set it up, we help you read it, and then off it goes onto the platform.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's great. I wouldn't have even known that was possible. But while we're on the topic of audio, MG, you're also a podcaster. So you run the podcast Indie Author Life, and you speak with authors and vendors in the independent publishing space. How has this helped you build connections, and how else do you think, apart from recording audiobooks, how do you think audio can be a valuable tool in an author's toolkit?
Yes, well, the Indie Author Life show started from me wanting to record my own audiobook, which is a bit strange how that came to be. But I went on to Amazon and bought myself a $50 microphone. And I thought the quality was great until I realised I need to do some research. And so I did, and I improved my setup. But in the meantime, I was playing around and I was talking to a friend, another author, SK May, and I was telling her about my microphone, and I'm going to record my audiobook and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, why don't you do podcasts? So I said, yeah, I guess so. I mean, I didn't really know much about it, but I thought, let's just give it a go. And Simone, SK May, was like, I'll be your first guest. Oh, okay, no problem. So, and I am one of those people that will just go with the flow and just give it a go, because why not? And I liked the idea of asking her questions, because she had also been someone in the indie author space that I had reached out to, and she had let me know things about her life and her experience about the indie world. So I knew that she had a lot to say. So I prepared a set of questions that I was going to ask her, and we just had a chat over Zoom, and I pressed record. And I do have a bit of knowledge in the Adobe Suite and using Premiere Pro, other tools like that. So there were a few tools that I could use at my disposal to enhance the sound and all that. Now the video quality is just Zoom quality, but I thought, look, it is a podcast at the end of the day. Yes, it is filmed with us talking to each other, but let's just put the audio out there and see what happens. And I got a bit addicted to it, because I really enjoyed hearing people talk about their experiences being an indie author, because as much as there is a community of indie authors out there, sometimes it can feel a little bit isolating when you are a sole trader in a lot of ways. You are sitting in front of the computer by yourself for a lot of the day, or you go to your day job, or with your families. They're not necessarily in the same profession as you. So they might not understand what it's like to, I'm trying to work with my editor on this, and you try to explain to them and they don't really quite understand the pressure of what it is like. But when you talk to another fellow indie or a fellow author, that's when you start going, how annoying is this? Or, how great is this? So the next guest I had on after SK May was another author, Jess McFarlane, her and I have built a really deep connection because we're a similar age. She writes fantasy, historical fantasy. And again, I think I just picked another person on the podcast. Like, I hadn't met her in person, but we've been talking on Instagram. So I went and gave it a go. I said, do you want to be on my show? She said, yes, why not? And it just came from there. It just turned into, I'm going to reach out to certain people and see whether they just want to be on the show. And I framed it as, it's just an opportunity to have a chat about your life experience being an indie author. That's all I want. Yes, we can talk about particular parts of your books, and I would love to do that, but I'm more curious about, what does your routine look like? How do you juggle family life and work life and writing life and all these things? So I had no sort of expectations in a way of reaching a grander audience. All I was doing this for really was the education piece, because having a resource like this where you've got straight from quote unquote the horse's mouth about what it's like on the ground in the indie author space, I feel like is incredibly valuable, because there are lots of similarities but there are lots of differences about how we do things. At the moment, all of my authors that I've interviewed so far, and we're up to episode 20, which is exciting, starting from December last year, all of them have been Aussie authors, but I do have some international authors lined up for the rest of the year. So that is going to be really interesting for me to hear about that. And a lot of the authors have been probably in the fantasy space, but I'm just starting to get a few more inquiries because now I have opened up. I'm not going to be the one to reach out to people. I might, so watch out. If anyone has a platform, I might reach out to you, but I have had to make a little form just so that people can, so I have like a database of, I want to make sure I allocate a spot for people and I don't, overwhelm people with me in their DMs and stuff. But I am trying to diversify the type of genres that I have on the podcast. So as far as the accessibility part of podcasts, how good is it to just get out your phone and just listen to it on your way to work and on the computer and things like that? But also it was something that, yes, I bought my microphone off Amazon and maybe it's not the best quality. But I worked on my skills. I had to learn a few things and I popped a little I don't know what you call them, the little the hat things that you put on them. That was one thing I did. And so I did that. And you know what? I actually did record my audiobook. I ended up doing it for Alara and the Passing, which is the short one. But can I just say, that was really hard with the technology I have. So I'm thankful that you exist, because if I want to do Still Waters Run Deep,
And it's called a pop filter.
Pop filter! Thank you. The little hat. Yes.
We don't say little hat.
No little hat. Please disregard that. So yes, that has been my experience with the whole podcast world. Yeah.
That's really cool. I know I said that after everything, but it is. Now I'll get Steph. She's looking very willing. I know you went into it before, but would you have any more advice on how indie authors can kind of establish themselves in a market? Because it is a very saturated market. There are a lot of writers out there. How do you try and stand out amongst the rest? How do you start a brand that will make you shine?
Big thing that I've learned working with indie authors is giving yourself the space to be the person that you want to be and what you want to write. I'm a part of Coven Press. We've worked with a lot of authors who have come to us with, I'm speaking just on this from a social media point of view, but that's not necessarily where it needs to be or stay, who worked primarily in what I would deem like the fantasy romance genre space when they write thrillers or horrors or lit fic. And I think there's this mentality that the only way that we can stand out on social media, for example, is to fit those or subscribe to those means of tropes or the way that is perceived online. I just don't think that's the case. I think what we found was if authors do latch on to who they are from a holistic level, if you write thriller, commit to writing thriller, commit to being that person, and stay away from the tropes of those social pieces, they do a lot better and they do stand out because they are fulfilling their own brand story, I suppose. I think as well there's this mentality as well that social media is the only way to market your book in the indie landscape, and that's not really the case. There are so many opportunities in, I guess, the physical landscape. I think people forget that there are newspapers, and it sounds a bit silly, but newspapers and radio and all like podcasts as well. There are so many ways to market yourself outside of social accounts and making, I guess, a branding identity online. But I think at the core is finding what you resonate with, going and following the people or connecting with people in that community and working together within that space, as opposed to looking at other people's what works for someone else, what works for romantasy and fantasy does not work for these other genres. And I think pigeonholing yourself into that space is unfortunately not the way to go.
I think it's kind of delving deeper kind of into not just the surface level, and coming to events like this and networking with people who are going through a similar thing to you. I think would also, you're getting yourself out there and actually talking to people, which is terrifying. Yeah. But I will have the last question for the entire panel. So this will be an interesting one to see how you answer. How much of your time is actually spent writing or doing the fun stuff for Lauren versus marketing or managing the business side of your work?
That's really interesting for you to bring up, because I try to be, I could probably tell you a bit of my routine as a indie. In the morning before work, I try to write. Now, I don't write much. I probably write maybe 200 words max. If I have time, if I'm working from home, some days I work from home. I work 5 days a week. I will write a little bit more, but then it's straight on to work, and then I've got nothing for marketing related stuff until the end of the day. Now, I just live in a unit with my husband and a cat, so I don't have to feed any other people. I don't have children, so after dinner and everything and a show might be on the telly or whatever, I'm on the computer doing a little bit of marketing stuff, doing a little bit of drawing as well, doing little bits and pieces. So in the week, in the midweek, a lot of it is fit around my day job. When the weekends come, now I know we're meant to be socialising, and yes, I do that. I sometimes get out of the house, but for the most part, it is time to get into some of the things that I know I want to enjoy spending time on in my writing business. So I'll do a little bit more writing then. And not only that, but I'll do some research and inspiration and things like that. So for me, personally, I don't spend hours and hours at the computer, but a lot of it is with writing, sorry. I do spend a lot of time in front of the computer for all the other design stuff and all the other stuff like that. But it is largely worked around my day job schedule. But it works for me, and it works for a lot of indie authors out there that do have children and do have a lot of commitments going on. So it's flexible, pretty much. But yeah, I don't run as much as some others, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a set schedule. It just depends on what I'm working on, which is often multiple projects at once. At the moment, I'm drafting a new thriller, so when I draft, I try to do that in a month. So I'm usually doing 2,000 words a day, and that will be 7 days a week. Once I commit to drafting, I absolutely want to finish that draft. And then if I'm editing a project, I'll do that in the afternoon. And if I'm doing script stuff, I'll also do that in the afternoon because I find scripts just a little bit easier to produce, I guess. And yeah, it's hard because my agency and my publishers are in the States, so a lot of my work is overnight as well. So yeah, I'm honestly working mainly, 16 to 18 hours a day, and that includes the marketing aspect. And I tend to not really have a day off, but yeah, but I think that's the work ethic I had for film and TV, so it just feels like I've just continued on that kind of trajectory. So, but yeah, in terms of writing, it does get quite difficult, and sometimes it does get pushed aside, especially if you've got stuff coming in overnight and it's like, this demands immediate attention, and then you're like, damn, I'm in the middle of drafting and editing it, and you're just like, sometimes that is the first thing to go, which is weird given the writing should be priority, but it just is what it is, I guess.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add? You don't have to.
Owning a business, I don't stop. So it's from the minute I wake up, but also audio. We do a lot of different things. We do a lot of regional advertising. You may or may not be familiar with Jono and Jono. That's one of ours, thank you. I know, it's an award winner. But for me, it's trying to stay ahead of the game. So with audiobooks, in that initial marketing phase, it's hard. So what story are you going to tell if you've got an audiobook on its way? So what we do first is we pick the best bits from the author. So we send those grabs out, and they can be used months leading into the actual release of the audiobook. So that gives people a sound grab so they can hear what they're eventually going to purchase. And we continually coming up with some really good and really bad ideas about just how to stay in front of people.
Not as much, I think it's the same across the board. I don't think as much as it is other things. Yeah, a lot of everything else except for writing, especially like most of my days are spent working within genres and individual author spaces to try and do the best that I can to help them get their books sold, essentially.
And what you do just is in your time. Yeah. Oh. Well, that is the last of the structured questions. So we have a this or that, quick fire questions, just to just see, get into their habits. It's nothing too salacious or controversial. So early mornings or late nights?
In what context?
Oh, just
For writing?
like you're writing, like you like to work.
It's going to be early mornings for the writing,
Yeah.
but then at night for the marketing, I guess. I don't know.
It's definitely both for me. I never ends.
Well, sort of 10 to 2. Ideally, I'm always on.
Early mornings.
Yes, we know. It's definitely early mornings with you.
How early is early, please?
How early is early?
I think my alarm goes up at like 4.
Oh,
Yeah. I can
4 o'clock.
Yeah, 4 o'clock. Yeah.
Same.
Oh, yeah, it's
are you awake naturally at 4 o'clock?
Because there are alarms going off.
No, I would say probably like 6:30. So maybe that's, it's still early for some, but anyway.
It is. I feel like, I don't know if you're the same. I feel like it's sometimes a TV thing. Like, production might work a bit differently because I worked a lot in post, and we're on contract for 10 hours a day, and it's like I don't want to be in the office at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So I will start my days early as possible so I can go home at like what a normal person goes home at 5 o'clock. I still have to start at 7. I think for me, it's just earlier, easier.
2 a.m.'s the sweet spot
Yeah.
for me. USA, and then no one's around. It's a good, it's a good time. Yeah.
Yes, there's no interruption. I'm definitely night owl. Like just sitting down after dinner and just drawing until I get nagged to come to bed. I'd stay up so much later if I could, but then I can't function the next day. Okay, next one. Quiet workspace or background noise? Do you need noise to work?
I don't think I need noise to work, but I like listening to music in the background, even with writing. If it's instrumental music, I like that. But I can certainly write in a cafe if I could and all that. So I guess either or, really. No screaming or anything like that.
I have to have quiet. Yeah, I need to hear my characters. So, yeah, if they're chattering, I find anything else distracting. So, yeah.
If the noise stops, I panic.
Yeah, same. Has to be noisy.
Yeah.
I'm the same. Yeah, got to have someone talking in the background. Okay, and reading, fiction or non-fiction, people?
Fiction for me.
I would have thought
yes.
so.
I'll read anything, but I mean, I guess mainly fiction. Yeah.
I couldn't choose. Yeah.
Day by day, whatever the vibe is.
Oh, and one more. Print books, e-books or audiobooks? I think I know what Lauren will say.
Well-produced audiobook.
I like audiobooks and physical. E-books, I find that maybe I need a bit of a break from the screen, so I won't gravitate towards an e-book, but I still like them for the portability. You're standing in line somewhere and you're like, oh, I'll just pull out my phone and then I've got my books on there, so there's that as well. But if I had to rank them, I think I would do physical, audio, then the e-book for me.
Definitely print. E-books feel like work, and I don't know what it is about audio. I can't retain it. My brain just doesn't like it very much. I'm not sure why, but I wish I could do audio so I could actually get through a lot more content. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's the only way I can do it these days. So thank you, everyone. I'd like to thank all of our panellists for being so generous with their time and expertise today. Now over to the audience. So, have we got any questions for our panellists? Don't be shy.
Somebody mentioned hybrid.
Oh, yes.
Somebody mentioned hybrid publishing. Can you just tell me a little bit more?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So there's obviously different routes to publishing. So traditional, which is Paula's expertise in that. Then we have hybrid, which is a mixture of sort of traditional elements with also like indie elements factored into that. I'm trying to explain it in the best way. I'm awful at explaining things, as we've probably heard today. It's sort of a middle ground between indie publishing and traditional publishing. So there might be an element of the book being published by the publisher, and the indie author then has to pay usually a percentage of what that looks like. There's usually a money investment involved in that.
So you share the
Yeah.
elements and the
Usually,
cost.
yes. So your indie process will be you fully front the cost. Hybrid is a bit of both. Usually, yeah. Whether it is a 50-50, it depends. I think publisher by publisher, and then traditional. I think you probably have a better explanation of that. But there is what's the word I'm thinking of? A payment advance is what's the word I'm thinking of.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Traditional publishing has an advance to write. Yes. Yeah.
Another question in pink?
Somebody's interested in audiobooks. I've sort of not really done very much or had very much to do with them, but I've started listening to a few. And the thing that's really struck me is that the platform that I'm using, they seem to use the writer to actually do the reading. And like one that I just finished, she was fantastic, and I really enjoyed her reading. And now I'm listening to this man, and the voice is just driving me absolutely crazy. And I'm thinking, like who chooses that? He is the writer. I won't say who he is. But I mean, he's obviously a wonderful writer. It's a fabulous book. It's done brilliantly. But yet to hear him read it on an audio book is utterly destructive. I'm just wondering whether that is how do they sort that out?
If it's his book, it's his money, and therefore everyone will say yes.
Yeah.
It sounds terrible, and he doesn't.
No one's told him, and he
They should.
yeah. They should, but have you seen The Voice? There's a lot of kids on that should have been told that they can't sing. So it's the same thing. If it's his money and he wants to read it, there's going to be a stack of people saying yes, go ahead. Here's your invoice number.
It's just purely because he's well known. He's therefore whatever he says.
Yeah, that people don't say. It's showbiz. They don't say no. You turn on the telly at any point. It's full of them.
That makes sense.
But also, some authors don't have the money to pay for a narrator or a professional narrator and things like that. I mean, from traditional publishing, I'm so lucky. I actually get samples of, and I get to write a little dossier of who I have in mind to do my narration, and I wasn't happy with any of the suggestions, so I actually said I want, people that I know, and then they were very gracious to have that. But obviously that's not my payment. But I think sometimes too there's that cost involved where authors can't afford to hire a professional narrator because it is quite expensive. But certainly if I had to read my own book, I'd be shocking. And it's such a shame because it will make or break your book, honestly. And that's why the narrator was so important to me, because I know that some people just won't listen to your book if your narrator isn't up to par or it's grating for whatever reason, and which is a shame. So
It's a struggle.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions from the audience? Oh, roll the way back there.
Yes. I would like to know how, in each of your respective spaces, I guess, the relevant question of Gen AI at the moment is a big one. How is it kind of impeding into your spaces, and how do you find that they're each navigating, finding their morals and standards in amongst that discussion right now?
That's a tremendous question.
Do you mind repeating it? Sorry, I couldn't.
AI, so artificial voice, for me, artificial voices. It's frightening for us. We had one of our talent recently, I was sent some audio and they said, can you replicate this or add to this, whatever it was. And I was listening to it, I'm like, that's Monica, I'll give her a ring. Monica had never given permission for her voice to be used in this piece. It had been recorded and then manipulated and put back. And I could hear it and knew it was her. So there's all sorts of, we've left it too late, but what it can't do is it can't replicate an Australian accent yet. So Australia stays a little bit safer for the mean. I mean, you've only got to go up the road here and accents change. So, so that's pretty tremendous. For us, there's no emotion, and you can't train something to be emotive, so that's another saviour. The other thing is that people are already starting to get sick of it. If you're on hold with the bank and they're telling you how much they care about you and it's an artificial voice, they're not caring, and it's the same for books. But it is absolutely frightening, and especially for the people that are reading, we no longer know when we send a voice back whether it's going to be used for its intent or whether it's going to be taken, put into a program and made into something that it was never supposed to be. But it's absolutely frightening.
So just to confirm, we're talking about generative AI, which is very different to just standard just AI, which is in just a lot of algorithms or programs. Generative AI is basically where excuse my language, assholes steal our works and mine it for data without our consent, and that's either permission to use or any financial recompense. And so basically it's theft, and what is happening is basically programs like ChatGPT will use everything that's been humanly sourced and stolen, and then output it as if it's somebody else's. So all you have to do is put in an idea, and then it can, and if you want to say, hey, I want to write like Paula Gleeson, then you literally pirate my things, put it in, and it will write and output like my voice, my kind of, how I structure a sentence, etc. So in terms of generative AI, yes, it's absolutely scary. We're trying to obviously put as many things in place in terms of our contracts, but it's unfortunate because there is no legal recompense at the moment, and that's still being kind of worked out. But basically just know if you're ever using ChatGPT for any creative field, whether it's writing, artistic works, anything that's basically had to use a human form, it's theft, that's first. It's you're not actually a creator, you're not a writer, you're not an artist in any way, shape or form. And it's worth researching the actual environmental aspects, because even to use ChatGPT to write an email of 100 words, which millions and millions of people doing daily, that it uses up 5 bottles of water, clean water, just for that one email. Now, if tens of millions of people are doing that daily, then the environmental aspects alone is worth looking at, just even to make a stance. So if you are in the creative community, our stance is very clear. It's fraudulent, it's theft, and you're not welcome in our space. It's just the bottom line.
Well, what I'd like to say is the fact that everyone did clap that is a testament to how strongly the community does take this issue of using generative AI. Now, one thing that on social media I have seen a lot of is a big pushback and I guess a boycott of certain organisations that are using generative AI, in particular even for covers and cover designs and stuff like that. And I think I'm really proud of us as the indie community and the author community and the creative community to have a stance against generative AI.
Apologies everyone, my camera ran out of battery and cut me off. Basically, I was agreeing and adding to Paula's stance on Gen AI. Avoid it at all cost, please, folks. Thanks for listening and watching.